All right, guys. So here is the authentication system completely done for DailySat. So yeah, let me just get started. Just to get started, I'm actually going to delete all of my data here that I have because we track a little bit of data about the users. Um, so yeah, I want to just delete that. Okay, let's get started. Okay, so here's how this works. Okay, so I'm gonna go through the sign in flow later on, but when you're here, right, when you're on the dashboard, you have two requests per 5 minutes. So I've set up a rate limiting system. Okay, and that's done through this one of these databases where you have your account, right? So it's tied to your account, not your IP address, but your account, and then you only have a specific amount uh, of requests. So after two requests, this is not going to work anymore, right? So here's what happened. So this is our second request in 5 minutes, right? Because you can see that this lives, excuse me, for 5 minutes. It's 4 minutes and 40 seconds. So yeah, you can say just practically it's 5 minutes. But when we do this again and we refresh again, you can see that it actually works. And here's what happens. Okay, here's what happens. We're now actually not getting data from our. Sorry, it's the wrong one. We're not getting data um, from the database itself, but rather we're getting the data from our cache. Okay, we're getting it from our cache. All right, and you can see with our cache, right? Excuse me, um, you're just getting all of your data. It's in JSON. It's just stringified, but it's in JSON format. We parse that into a regular JSON so that the dashboard can be populated, but it's stale now. So meaning that if I go to, like, for example, let's say math, and I got this correct, I got 50 points, right? So if I go back into my MongoDB Compass, if I refresh this, I should be at 350 currency. But if I go back over here, you can see that I stay at 300 currency, and that's because it's using the stale data from the cache. But as soon as that 5 minutes is over, it will repopulate itself to whatever the database has in store. All right. This way, we just make sure that there's a reduced burden on the database, right? Like you don't have that much of a burden on the database, while still having very fast and highly distributable system because Redis can be easily distributed through Redis clusters, right? Again, it's obviously going to cost more because you're scaling, but I've done this before, but it's super easy and it's super efficient, so we can use this. There's also Dragonfly DB, which is a drop-in replacement. Again, I talked about this before. That also supports a solution like or similar to Redis clusters. All right. So yeah, here is everything completed. All right. Um, and so now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to sign out. And when I've signed out, you can see that I'm actually redirected to a page called unauthorized. You can go to this when you're authorized too. It's just to kind of like give some UI to the user when they're not, when they're not logged in. But you can see that if I try to go to, like, for example, let's say math, it'll just take me to unauthorized. It won't let me go because, again, I don't have the proper credentials to access those different resources. I can, however, go to the About page because the About page doesn't require any user interactivity. In fact, I'm using server-side rendering on this page, right? Because again, there's no interactions, right? It's just information, and I feel like anybody should be able to see that. But anyways, we can go ahead and sign in again. It's through Google exclusively, right? So we go ahead and sign in, and so I'm gonna pick my account again, and there you go. We are now officially back into my account. If I go ahead and look into this, you'll see that it's still this limit is still existing, right? It's existing for about a minute now. And then after that, I will have a refresh limit of two requests per 5 minutes. But again, user won't know. They obviously will see the stale data. But after that stale data, like for example, here, if I put this at, like, let's say 1, So we can just kind of see this. You can see that it refreshes to the 350 because again it's using the database. But again, user won't really feel that difference. Again, if users do complain about it, we can change or like change the limit to include more requests in a time given, like a time slot. Maybe lower down the request, the time limit to like 3 minutes, like two requests per 3 minutes. So we can do something like that so that it stays pretty accurate while still reducing burden on the database system as a whole. Right. So again, we talked about this last time. It was in the software designing. It's just that if you've read my comment here, we are just using Redis instead of the Dragonfly DB, which we were going to use because I noticed that I had credits for a Redis database. So it just made sense. It's just economically more viable. Also, another thing that I did was that if you go into like math or reading and writing, you'll actually be able to add points. Right. So when I'm submitting when I'm submitting something, you'll be able to you get a API request of handle submit, right? So within here, instead of allowing them to use the like to enter the data directly into the request payload because that can be malformed, I'm using a JWT token, and so that way it's more secure because you need the JW secret to actually see or decode the information. So if I actually put this into jwt.io, you'll see that the payload is whatever I need, but this does give currency out, so we don't want to give it out to any user who can just put this payload in the actual request payload. So we're using the JWT token to decode it instead, right? So you can see currently that this is giving me an invalid signature because the signature is currently invalid. But if I do add my proper key, then it will work properly, right? And it will be able to verify itself.